All right, so welcome guys to another episode of The Journey. Today I've got Francisco, the founder of Team Sports. I'm so excited to speak to him. He's doing a lot of great things with his app, but he's going to tell you a lot more about that. But before that, remember to subscribe, like the video, share it, and let's get into the interview. So Francisco, welcome to The Journey. Thank you for being here. Hope you're well.
I'm well, and thank you for having me.
Yeah, great. So let's actually get into it, first of all, by understanding what Team Sports is. Why don't you give us a brief introduction?
Sure. Team Sports is an AI sports platform. It doesn't say much in a tagline, but really what we want to do is to change the way amateur athletes of any sports, of any sorts of life, and then their relationship with data and understanding their performance. So provide them the tools that, as we know, are only available to professional teams, but we figure out a way with a lot of coding how to make those teams, all those tools simpler and affordable and accessible. You don't need anything special. You just need your phone pointed to yourself, and boom, you can understand your form, your shape, how you're doing, count reps for you. You can do conditioning exercise, basketball, football exercises, and so on and so on. So yeah, that's Team Sports.
And I think one of the reasons why I really love your business so much is obviously a lot of this technology is really aimed at elite level athletes who have the budgets for it. But you're saying, actually, I think everyone deserves a chance to improve the game, improve their form. So let's create something for them in that instance. And we're going to probably talk about that in a bit more, but let's really paint the picture of where you are now in the business. Like, what are your top achievements? What are you going through at the moment?
Sure. Yeah, I think the top achievement for Team Sports always been the fact that we, since early 2018, we were able to attract a group of people that are equally passionate by our vision. So, it's great to be the head and the face of a business, but really they are the business, and they committed countless hours, nights, and the time they took from their families. So really, the top achievement is that we do have a team, and we actually have a team from very early. I mean, when I mean early, I mean, when you think you've got an idea this early, and then the idea turned into a project, and now it turns into where we are. So I think this has been really our key achievement. We wouldn't be here without the team.
Yeah.
Second to that is been the partnerships that we established after we completed the Sports Tech Hub Accelerator in London. Partnership with London Sports opened an amount of doors for us, and we realized actually we realized then we had sort of the first glimpse of the need for what we were building. Because London Sports said, "Hey, here's 21 satellite teams in London. Can you onboard them into your platform?" It's like, yes, in a while we will. And with that came the Harlequin Foundation. And then we start getting some traction from Argentina and abroad, and we realized actually we were no longer just an idea, a project. There was people really wanted to consume what we were building. And this is what we are. So we are now in the midst of our first pre-seed round. We're literally halfway through. It is going well. If any investors are watching, do connect. We still need to complete the round, and effectively is taking to market. I mean, we are already in the market. One of the latest achievements for us has been the Manchester Kings joining the platform very early. There wasn't really anything for them then, but they took it on board and have been working with us throughout to shape both the product for coaches as well as the app for players. And in the last month and a half or so, they have made Team Sports the way they do their training program.
Amazing.
So we have seen a spike of 300 plus exercising sessions in a month through a Team Sports platform, which is kind of where we are now.
And
looking at data.
Yeah, and so you've actually touched on like quite a lot of things I'd probably even like to just go into a bit more while we talk about where you are now. So oftentimes when you ask founders, what are your biggest achievements? They talk about the customers, but it's interesting. You spoke about the team. Yeah. First of all, the team that you're able to build around yourself. So let's actually kind of go into that a bit more. Like, what was that process of really building a great team right from the get-go? How was that?
I think like everyone else, you start something, starts in your head, starts in a sketch, which Team Sport actually did, starts in a little sketches, and then we went on building actually a wearable, or hardware for sports, for athletes to wear. But I think very soon you realize that if you want to build something great that has a social impact, the way we want Team Sports to have in people's lives, you can't do it on your own, because you cannot have all the skills. No one has all the skills. And actually the best thing I have done was to onboard my CTO to come on board and sort of take away all the maths and the scientific AI coding, which I would spend many nights to try to figure that out before I could have something done. And I think the only thing I had for them was start in a place of trust, for them trusting me and me trusting their skills and their ability, their opinion, and what they thought was the best approach to do the things that's why they were there, and get them buy into the vision. So I think Team Sports has the potential to impact lives of the younger me in Angola, dreaming about becoming a Kobe Bryant. And if so, I had an app that could create sort of a digital passport. And I travel around the world. I can see my boys there. Can hear my voice. If I travel around the world, and the thing that connected me to people was the fact that I could play basketball, and that sort of international language of sports. If I so had sort of a digital passport of my performance when I enrolled to a team and say, this is me, let me attach to your data, your Team Sports platform. In suddenly it's like, yeah, we know who Francisco is, and now we know what we need to do to improve his performance from where he's at. And this is how, the Ronaldo's moving from one team to another. They understand that performance in the background. It's not just the sort of the great skills he has and the goals, but that data effectively is his digital passport and his achievements. We want this for everybody. Everyone loves sports the same way, regardless if you are in a village somewhere in Japan or in the middle of Brazil. If you love your football and you've got a phone, which most of us have, you could take on Team Sports app and improve your performance as well. So learn how to do it better. So
yeah,
that vision is sort of what held the team together, and nothing else. We don't have anything else to give to people, but all that sort of like, I promise you, if you bring your skills to Team Sports, you actually will impact the world, and that is the opportunity. So, and
that's the big thing. That's the big why we're doing what we're doing. The fact that you can enable someone that doesn't actually always have the opportunity, and like you said, give them a digital passport. That's game changing. Obviously, we know how hard it is to just get into top level sports, let alone semi-pro sports as well. It's not an easy thing. So when you really give someone the opportunity, especially that's in another country that maybe not everyone always pays attention to, that really speaks volumes about where you're trying to go and how you're actually trying to impact people on a global scale. Another thing you mentioned, right, was the partnership with London Sport. So I guess, first of all, if you just give a quick 30-second intro of what London Sport is, but the big thing there is distribution. Oftentimes, people have a great product, but where often fails them is they don't know how to get that to the customers. They don't know how to open up those channels and stuff. So that was a really big thing for you. Like, if you could just talk around that a bit.
Sure. So I knew it. So the majority of sports in the world, I think that is something that people need to sort of learn to demystify. So if you are in the sports industry, and if you're thinking only at the NBAs and NFLs, that is not the majority of sports that are played. The majority of sports are played at amateur level and funded by the government. So the government in UK funding sports at all levels, not obviously the Premier League level, is Sports England. And that same entity for London is London Sports. So London Sports understands and one of the strategic direction was to increase the level of activity in UK. As a result of their strategy, they created a Sports Tech Hub Accelerator, which is actually the only a sports accelerator in UK. And we were lucky to apply, pitch, and get into the accelerator, and that sort of opened the doors that Sports England, I guess, that the government can open in relation to sports at the level that we are interested in anyway. Team sports is for everyone, not for the Premier League. Otherwise, we would be knocking the Liverpools and other big clubs' doors, and which was not the case. So that partnership was key for us. And although we knew we were early stage, in fact, we pitched at Sports Tech Hub our wearables. And when the program started, we were actually already doing just machine learning and computer vision, sort of an AI solution, a software only solution. So we had pivoted completely from hardware. But although we were at that early stage, we create those connections, and it takes time to build those connections, to get to know the people, get to know how much influence they have, understand their network, so that you can heal the results later on. And I knew that later on we would be ready and we will have that connection. And that helped us raise £20,000 from London Sports, and being able to access potentially 21 satellite clubs in London only. So
And I think that really speaks to the true value of an accelerator, right? It literally accelerated your position. Because oftentimes a lot of accelerators don't actually do what they set out to do. So hearing that, and you've got a product and immediately you've got access to now 21 teams that can use it, that's amazing. And I guess one of the last points that you touched on was this whole issue of fundraising, right? And the thing is, I think fundraising has been glamorized a lot.
That's true.
And I love it when I get people like you to come on so I can genuinely ask, what is the actual reality of fundraising?
It's a good question. We're recording, right? So, I think it's interesting. So, I think we need to start as it is. So I am a Black founder in UK. We know the stats in terms of access to funding as being a Black founder. I do not have a PhD in AI. I am self-taught. In fact, self-taught in many things I've done in my life. So the only thing I've got is sort of grit and determination. Heaps of determination, really. There is no limit to it. And I started thinking, and this was for me was a learning curve. First, because just thinking straight away on my network, do I know an investor? And the answer was no. So I didn't know an investor. So it took me some time to understand that actually that you need to access investment to the level you at, to the investors that understand where you are and are able to accept the risk that you bring to the table, right? Initially, I was having conversation with VCs, which was a mistake. I wasted a significant amount of hours because really VCs are looking for, the unicorns, and you need to demonstrate. You need to demonstrate their sort of unicorn. Remember, we are still pre-revenue at today. So we've got users using our app, but we're pre-revenue. So I had to learn to shift and think about investors in a much smaller, much closer to home way, and start with my network, and start with, can you invest in team sports very early? It is risky, but here in UK we've got the EIS scheme, which we applied, and we provide those assurance. So that means you get some return on your investment. I don't lose as much, and it was interesting because through speaking to people and some of those earlier, I knew at some point I would need investment, but I knew the best way to understand, where I am and how I will raise funding was to find coaches and advisors. So I approach a handful of people and say, I need to learn how to figure this out. Would you advise me? And surprising enough, I will speak of Amanda McKenna, but I've got Toby Hollies, I've got Lisa Mayers, and a couple of others who thought, you know what, that's fine. I'll advise you. And Amanda McKenna started advising me when team sports was mostly an idea in my head. We met at a web summit, introduced by friends. Took about 6 months until we had a coffee or so. And she said it as it was. She said, you're not ready. Of course, as a entrepreneur, those are tough things to hear. So you don't want to hear that. You don't want to hear that you don't have a business, right? Because in my head, team sports already existed, right? But it was only in my head. It's a long process to take it from your idea to actual execution and a user using your product. But she did something that many didn't do. She said, let's have one call a month. Let's talk about it and let me advise you. And she done it free of charge. I could never ever afford the advice that Amanda McKenna gave me, and then Lisa, and then Toby and then others. But they came in and said, look, actually, let me help you out. And surprising enough, when I was ready for investment, then, despite the many hours I wasted, speaking to VCs, they said, we will invest in you.
Wow.
And that then sort of create a cascading effects into their networks and so on and so on. So today we have raised investment from investors in US, which I had I didn't know of, but Lisa did know of, and Toby did know of, and so on and so on, and that sort of, and then you sort of get a door into sort of that world, because it is very, very incestuous. They know one another. They know who invested and who. They sort of part of the same angel groups, and they know of one another. And then was through facilitation of those introductions that we are halfway through or past halfway through our investment goal. And but I wouldn't know where to start. A couple of years ago, and it was sort of build up your network, build as early as you possibly can. I often think about it like connecting dots. Life and the connections that I make in life are sort of just a dot, that some of those will have a great impact in my life and my goals. Some others, they feel sometimes they will have less. But I never thought of any of those as a waste of time. And I'm always open to a conversation, always open to a chat, always open to meet people, always open to a coffee, always being open to get to know people, regardless of what that would happen. And I think that really helped me now that I needed my network, because some of those dots suddenly brought in an investor. Because I just said, would you, I'm looking for investment. Okay, Francisco, I can't invest on you, but my brother-in-law can, but I know this friend can, and I know this. And then suddenly sort of multiply my 300 then contacts on LinkedIn by, exponentially. And that really helps sort of, be open to opportunities. Sometimes is even about knowing the opportunity clearly is there, and it's just I'm not a one with the fairies, but let the universe connect the dots, and that's more important.
And I think what's good about what you said is your journey really speaks of patience, right? Like you said, before you even sat down for a coffee was 6 months. So that was just 6 months of just trying. And even after that point, took another while before you even got a penny of investment. So you know, what you've spoken about, understanding the investor mindset, understanding if you're actually ready for investment, and also the power of leveraging your networks. Like those are three key things that I think if most people could adopt more, they would invest more efficiently and invest with the right people. You don't just want people throwing money at you. You want the advice as well. You want the expertise. And I think that's what you've really done well organically as well.
Yeah, and you know, even if they are not willing to invest this early, you establish that connection. And when you're ready for a different sort of investment, or you are at a different sort of stage with your startup and business, they might actually be there for you with that check ready for you, because they understand early enough, you know, where you were and where you got to where you are. So make as many dots as you can. You won't be able to connect all the dots always, but you'll be surprised. I have got so many, you know, small world stories. I've lived in Brazil, I lived in Portugal, and now obviously living in UK. There are so many small world stories I could not believe it happened, but yeah, you'll be surprised. Those dots will connect at some point.
Yeah.
And
I guess let's probably go right back to the very beginning, when team sports actually became a tangible idea in your head. Like how did you actually get to the point where you're like, this is it, this is what I'm gonna do?
Did I say I'm stubborn? Yes, I think I knew. So I am an amateur athlete, and I've always been. I play amateur sports, and I realized very soon that we all love data. Me and my teammates and my friends, we share Strava accounts, Nike trainers, and all sorts of things. Whichever ways we can capture our performance data, we're interested in being healthy and be sporty, and that helps us obviously play our sport. But when we were playing our sport, there is nothing there we could use. So I knew there was a gap there that needed filling. I, as I said, I started by thinking at solving that gap by producing a wearable. But also in my mind, team sports needed to be accessible. So the greatest barriers to sports, the greatest barriers to entry in sports is cost. Cost is one of those. Think about the most deprived areas, even here in UK. You already have to rent the place you're going to play sports. You probably have to bought a football or a basketball or a rugby ball, and plus your outfit and so on. So now there is a company saying you need to buy a wearable to track your performance. So it just didn't feel right. So I wanted to build something that fit in how team sports, how amateurs played sports, where if you play tennis, you're 30 times more likely to play badminton and squash. So you needed to have a solution that you could take around that was yours, that no matter where you were, I was in a park, in a garden, etc., it was there. So I knew it needed to fit that model. And what we did very well was sort of, which is difficult, we impose ourselves to constraints, because I could have tried to this is a working prototype. I can track athletes 100 times better than a GPS solution can. But if it didn't fit the mold for me in what the vision was for team sports, it wasn't worth investing further. And I think imposing ourselves those constraints enable us to sort of gain clarity in our vision. Because it's very easy, for us to get distracted with things that seem to work. But, if we bring back to our constraints, we were building a solution for amateur sports available to everyone. And if we hadn't thought of having those constraints in place, potentially we wouldn't have the partnership with London Sports, because London Sports saw that team sports could be used by communities that don't even think sports is for them, because it's an interactive experience for you to become active. And when one of our developers, Anko, that was testing a very early prototypes of our app during lockdown at home, he was a former wheelchair tennis player, which was active inside his flat. There, exactly. That is the potential for team sports. Is much broader than anyone that can afford a wearable, right? And it was having those constraints that enable us to step through any experiment that we did, whether it was with software only, with platform, with questionnaires, interviews, testing hardware solutions that gave that clarity and the right direction for team sports. And is very, I could not stress more that if you have an idea, hold on to sort of the constraints on why you created that idea in the first place. Hold on very dearly and very close to your heart, because if you can, there is so much happens between an idea and an execution and actually a product. So those things couldn't be further apart. If you deviate slightly from your original idea, your product will end up something that you might not be proud of, and then you might not be interested in taking it further. So we did not accept any solution or any experiment that didn't fit. Team sports is for everyone, anywhere. And if it doesn't feel that is for everyone anywhere, then that's not team sports. That's a separate business. We're happy to give someone the sketches and the prototypes to someone else to run with it, but that's not team sports.
Yeah. Great, honestly, great advice, and something I'm going to take for myself as well, especially as I coach other people as well. And I think what you said was really important. Having a product at the end of the day you're proud of. That's the biggest thing. Anyone can choose to go work for someone else, get a nice job somewhere else, but to embark on a journey of being a startup founder, if at the end of the day, like, you can't be proud of your product.
Exactly. Exactly.
Almost a waste. Exactly.
Exactly.
So we kind of spoke about where you are now and how you've started. Let's touch on, how are you marketing? Like, what have you learned about actually marketing product? That's something that a lot of people kind of struggle to do as well. How are you finding that?
I think so. There's a couple of things. So one is that we're already thinking like that. We're thinking about our go-to-market, of course. We are experimenting with AdWords and paid marketing. We do have our social media channels. Some of those actually we had from very early days, which sort of helps sort of build that traction. So you don't start from scratch. Let's say from the moment you go into market, then your channel, it is unknown. No one knows it. So merchandise helps. We attended the Web Summit. We attended the CogX conference here in London, Web Summit in Lisbon. We spoke at a West Ham Stadium conferences enabled by Latbury University. We spoke at Latbury University. So I think all those are opportunities to market your product and to get your vision out there. So my advice is, don't underestimate there are other ways to market yourself than just that's why I never take this t-shirt, which my wife hates, but yeah. So and this is what we do, and we all do that. Our LinkedIn's profile, we speak of team sport, to share articles, we publish articles, and so on and so on. So all that helps for this early stage market, which is effectively, we are creating awareness about a solution that many people don't think exists. People think performance tracking is something that is for Premier Leagues, not for us. And so we know there is a work to be done to make people aware that team sports in our technology exists. But beyond that, we're going to use the typical marketing channels, the social media channels, the advertising channels. We are budgeting for it. We know that a great deal part of launching a product is making sure that everyone knows, understands, and likes the product, feels the need for that product. And so we are reserving a big chunk of our pre-seed investment for marketing only. So there's from video productions, PR campaigns, paid print, and so on and so on. So marketing, but yeah.
Two really good points I think you've touched on. One, I think people really underestimate this thing about talking about the business, talking about the product, trying to put yourself in events. podcasts,
Yeah.
radio, like those channels are
Yeah.
slept on. I don't know, maybe it's because as we move on, more people are more digital and they're just more used to Instagram and Facebook and stuff. But that's such a big thing. You go to 5 events that maybe have, I don't know, 100 people each, and at least 20 of them decide they like it and talk to their friends. It compounds. It compounds.
Exactly.
Literally.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I think, like I said earlier, I think see those things as just another dot. Whether you know how they will connect or not, they will connect at some point. And all of those things are opportunities, are learning opportunities. And so, you know, that's what I do effectively with team sports, and I nurture my team to sort of be out there learning. You know, what have you learned? We need to continue learnings, because, you know, what else is more exciting in life than, you know, learn more, you know, tomorrow than we know today.
Yeah, and the next thing is the concept of paid ads. So obviously everyone always wants to grow organically and have the story where, you know, I just posted it and then suddenly I had a million shares. But in such a saturated market, where do you value that importance of paid ads? Do you think it's now a necessity, or how do you even go about thinking about it?
It is part how other business market themselves. Is sort of how people. How else would I? Not sure if organic would enable us the reach that the paid ads does, because that's targeted, enable us to speak to the people that we think matter the most. So organically, you not always can do that as effectively as you can do it with paid ads. And I think that's one thing. If you do have a product that organically sort of shakes the world and everyone suddenly speaks of, then fantastic. The majority of products are not like that. You need to put an effort to target what you think are your customers, and organically you can't do that very well.
Which is great, because I don't know, I think sometimes what I've heard in some of the communities I speak to, there's almost this negative connotation of paid ads. Oh, you had to pay for people to get to know you. But it's like, we see it with all these brands, like on adverts, they didn't get on your TV for free, like they paid.
Exactly. When you think about the I guess maybe speaking of me, when I think about the latest LeBron or the latest Kobe shoes, I probably seen 5 or 6 or 7 ads on my Instagram, because they know what I like. So I think all of those things need to be done to ensure that you are promoting your business the right way to the right people. I think that is always a time where paid ads might actually not work for you, or any other sort of advertising. I think what is important is sort of understand, what are your goals, where do you want to be, where do you want your product to be, what sort of market do you want to target. If I somehow, for whatever reason, decided that I needed to target India or Japan and those Asian markets, which I don't understand very well, paid ads will probably help me better than organic will, and faster as well. But it is important for us, sort of for me, I'm constantly looking for ways to disprove myself. It's very easy to sort of see one extra download and get caught up in sort of the wrong metrics. We want people to really enjoy and look and use our products. A download is just anyone can download. We've got many apps on our phones, which we download because we saw an ad and we thought, give it a try, but that thought quickly dissipates out. So I don't want to get caught up in sort of those sort of metrics which don't really speak of the engagement that we want to deliver for our users. So for us, yes, we want to get a download. If we get the download through paid ads, that's fantastic. But if that download does not end up being a user that actually uses our app, on a weekly basis or a monthly basis or whatever might be the level of engagement that we expect from our users, then it probably was a wrong pound spent in the wrong place, and potentially maybe we need to invest more in other sorts of marketing, more conferences, more speak on meetups, more podcasts and so on, because if we see that is what brings us the users that love our product, that hopefully at some point will pay for our product. So I think one needs to sort of understand where they are and what exactly they're trying to get out of those marketing activities, instead of just doing for the sake of doing, right? I think it is a necessity if you want awareness, if you want to reach out to markets and to customers quickly. Yes, invest in paid marketing, but understand if that is actually giving you the return that you expect. Otherwise, it's just a vanity metric, a download, right? So or a visit to your website, is a bit of a vanity metric.
Honestly, I wish I could talk more on that so much. I think you touched on the points. So I guess rounding up onto the final two questions, it's spoken about marketing and sales right now, but what about strategy and operations? People just don't, it's not sexy. Yeah, people are like talking about it, but it's a core. Like operations is literally the backbone of the business. So how have you gone about really structuring the way you operate to keep growing and to keep doing what you want to do? And how does that link to your overall strategy?
That's such a good point, because I think we are sort of actually having those conversations at the moment. We've got 3 teams in Manchester onboarded and actually actively using our apps as part of their training program. The coaches using our Coaches Corner, which is sort of a web interface where they can understand and shape exercises and drills, etc., for their players, understand their performance, and obviously to be able to act on it. And we've been thinking about onboarding new coaches, but at this, instead of doing sort of as a manual way that we've done at this stage, we're now thinking, actually, how do we properly onboard a customer? How do we serve that customer? How do we let them know where we are? But hold on, where are we? Are we on a calendar? Are we on a Slack? Are we on a WhatsApp for business? Where are we for our customers? And you need to think about all that side. And you're right, it is not very sexy, I guess, or attractive work to do, but actually it makes a huge impact on the satisfaction of a user, because you are dealing with a business that was well thought and the operations are in place, especially when you want to ask a question, especially when you want to if you want to speak to someone else, especially when things go wrong and you're sort of frustrated, and when that friction happen, in operations that effectively eliminate that friction, and suddenly it becomes an afterthought, because with someone else there at a click of a button, suddenly I'm speaking to someone else. We use Sid Legals, and I have to say they are very, very, very good. Their operations are outstanding. You've got so many touch points, but they all seem to connect. There is never a miscommunication, whether you go to a website and speak on a chat bot, and that gets taken to a calendar event and to a meeting, or you do other way around, the same process of engaging with them. There is never a disconnect of information, and there it is where every business should be. And we want to do this early enough, because we are small enough. We don't have the million users. We want to establish that those operations and those processes right now, and test them out with 1 or 2 or the next set of users to make sure it works, and interrogate ourselves and ask our users if it is working, because it is also very easy and for one to adopt operation models that are out there, but actually that is always something that is specific to team sports, to our business, that we need to tweak and adapt on how we work, as well as where we are and where we want to be as a business, right? And operations sort of needs to grow. and evolve as your business evolves and grows. So yeah, it is and it's a lot of work. Actually, it's not and it's not the brand and the logo and the colors and the experience, but actually it is a great deal part of the experience that actually matter, because those are your users that get in touch with your operations. And we don't want a business where we are very good at onboarding new users. We need to be very good at celebrating the users and support them throughout the time they are with us. And when they decided to leave, we want to make sure that they feel that we still care about them at that point. And that's sort of, how we're planning our operations. And it's part of our roadmap. It's not sort of something we're doing on the side.
Yeah, and something I always tell the people that I mentor, it's kind of like, so get your house in order. Like, everyone wants to focus on marketing, right? Go and everyone, hey, come look at my house. It's great. Like, come spend some time. But if you come in and the house is messy, things are broken, door doesn't work properly, then it's just a bad experience and nobody wants to come to your house anymore. So marketing is great for bringing people there, but the way how you operate is what keeps them there and gives them that good experience. So that's why, I love talking about it. I never want to stop talking about it. And I always want to give it the same level of respect as marketing sales as well. But so moving on to probably the last question now, it's more just about based on all your experiences, like what is the top advice you can just give to anyone right now that it's starting a journey or is in the middle of it, just to keep pushing forward?
Be prepared for a world of pain. I think is one. I think you need to have endurance. It is a marathon. I heard more no's and more you're wrong than I've heard you're right. And so it is also important to have that persevere throughout those hard times when you don't have a team, in the hard times when you do have a team, and the hard times when you're not yet where you want to be, and the hard times when a customer or a range of customers says, actually, I don't need your product. It's like, but why? Everyone else, in my head, everyone needs this product. So I think my advice is, it is worth, I think there is a great deal of opportunity for us to change the world as we see it. We cannot leave on the hands of the big players. We know what sort of disservice they do. We need to start new businesses, think slightly different to a world tomorrow be something else that we or our kids will enjoy living in. But it's not easy. There is a lot of services. I would always say, go and ask. I never hesitate to ask someone for help. Some of their help might come as a shape of accelerators, leverage there. There are a lot of Slack channels, a lot of people creating, those vertical communities. Tap into that, be part of those communities, be part of where the conversations are happening. Can be quite noisy, but look for help, because people who are willing to help you build your business and be successful, sometimes with no return. Just the fact that everyone wants to live in a world tomorrow that is better than today. As simple as that, really. But it is tough. It is so you need to endure to a lot.
Great advice. So thank you so much for even just spending time to do this. Anyone that runs a startup is always doing 100 things at any given time anyway, so I appreciate that. I will post the website and the link to the app as well. And guys and ladies as well, if you do want to improve your performance in whatever sport you play, then definitely download the app and you'll see the benefits from it immediately. So thank you, Francisco, for your time.
No, it was a pleasure. Thank you for having me. All right.
Great. Thanks a lot.
All right. Take care.
Cool.